So today I think I got a really good game to talk about. It's a game called VED, and I'm very excited to get into it because there's really a lot to enjoy here. And personally, I think this is one of those games that has been overlooked or maybe not even acknowledged at all. But before we do get into that, though, I do want to say just a little personal shout out kind of thing. One of the OG members of the channel, I mean, might as well be like just a member of the team. His name is Trick. I'm sure you guys have seen him in the comment section. He's an amazingly cool guy, just a very kind soul. Anyway, he's going through some stuff right now, and I just wanted him to know that he's got a lot of support, thinking about him. He's in thoughts and prayers, and I'm also encouraging any of you to maybe just throw some good vibes, some love down there in the comments for Trick. That would mean a lot. I know that would probably make things a little bit easier on him. But anyway, I don't want to dwell too much on dark stuff, and I definitely don't want to get into anything more than that. So let's talk about VED, as this is a very interesting game that I got on the PS5 recently. This is one of those games that I picked up because it just looked kind of cool, and it was an indie RPG. It's on sale, and that helps a lot, but it did drop recently. And for any of you who are just Nintendo Switch users and you think, oh man, that sucks, this game looks cool and whatever, I think the Switch could handle this. I wouldn't be surprised if this game drops for the Switch later on, maybe early next year, something like that. The dev team behind it has been working on it for over 12 years, and there is a lot of effort put into it, so I don't think they would just release it for one console. I know it's also on Steam as well, but I'm sure they want to get it to as many gamers as possible, and I hope they do, because like I said, quite a bit to appreciate about it. And I think a lot of it starts with just the story itself, as it is a rather simple story. The narrative isn't too windy or confusing, but the dialogue is excellent. And I think like that is what really makes up for maybe a straightforward story. I wouldn't say it's a bad story in any sense of the means. You're essentially a young adult male who happens to be kind of going blind, and you're trying to master the ways of the sword and magic. And early on while you're playing the game, you feel like this world is completely normal, or just about completely normal, and the use of magic doesn't exist. But it turns out it does, and they're actually being hunted. The magic users have to meet in secret, and there's little codes they have to use. It's a very cool like little story. Like, it kind of can put you in the mindset of a lot of different groups that have had to hide what they are, who they are, and they really touch upon more of like the dialogue, the interactions that you're having, and more importantly, I think with the dialogue comes decision making and how it actually makes a big difference. And decision making can go from just normal conversations, how you're accepted by other people, or how you get others to be on your side about things, or honestly, like just a few decisions can actually massively, drastically change the end of the game, as well as when you are in actual combat, or what I would say like combat zones, you get to choose your path, which doesn't sound so awesome if you're like, that sounds kind of limiting. Well, to an extent, it sort of is, but at the same time, with all that other freedom, you don't really feel that limited by the fact that you are sort of on rails, and it is a rather linear story with not a lot of side quests. There's a few here and there, but really what they're trying to do is just tell you a story, have you enveloped in it, make decisions that could have a lot of impact, and also just to tell you that story. Not a lot of exploring, not a lot of finding out the lore about this world, which is fine, honestly. Because honestly, I don't know how they would do that in the presentation that they have for this game. You see, and why I think it can be handled on the Switch is like, it is all hand-drawn art, and you essentially see the characters with little animation to them, but for the most part, it's still images of just amazing artwork brought to life by outstanding voice acting, some amazing music, a whole symphony of elements, dialogue, that really just bring you into the game. And you almost forget that, oh hey, I don't actually have full control of this character. I am almost watching a book, but yet when you do get into the combat of it, which is quite often, honestly, there isn't like just a whole, this isn't like Danganronpa where you're reading for 30 minutes to an hour, and the combat itself is challenging and yet really fun. And there's two reasons why. Because for one, when you're in like that combat zone and you're essentially just going through different areas, you can choose what path to go through, and you'll kind of see an enemy over there that you might have to fight, or there's an NPC that you might meet. And the cool thing about it is, though, is you get to choose different actions outside of just combat. Now, sometimes it's just straight up combat or going into turn-based roguelike style of combat, but other times you have actions with the environment that actually comes out more like a tabletop D&D sort of style, where you have to roll dice and you have a certain amount that you have to hit, X amount of agility, X amount of strength, charisma, whatever you have, and you have your D20, and you're just hoping you hit on a good number. Or even some of those have some buffs to them because of your own character build and what you've been doing. The other cool thing, though, about this world is you collect, I'm going to say souls. They're not really souls, but they're sort of souls, but they're definitely a currency. And you can use this currency to actually build up this other dimension where you have these fights and where you freely use magic. By the way, did I explain that the combat area is in a different dimension that you teleport to? I didn't think I did. Though honestly, it feels organic when you're in that situation. But anyway, so you do have like this sort of headquarters where you have a troglodyte that just sort of gives you some guidance, tells you where you might want to go, what you might want to do, what could help in a certain situation. And at the same time, that area that you kind of call your hub, your home base, you can build things that are going to help your character build or strengthen parts of, I want to say, your equipment, but not really. It's kind of interesting the way that works. You have the same sword pretty much throughout and everything, but there is different skills that you have, and some of those can even transform into a different weapon. I think I haven't confirmed it for myself. I beat the game and I haven't done that, but one of my friends said it again. If I'm being honest, the first time I played, I didn't really focus on my base too much, or even upgrading my character as much as I should, or my skills, spending time doing that. Instead, I was just sort of just really caught up in the story, and I wanted to know more. Because I will say, about halfway through, you really get locked in. In fact, I would say maybe even 30% through, you really get locked in, and the story it's one of those games where you just want to keep going. The only thing that can be frustrating about it is the gameplay. As I said, the combat is turn-based roguelite style, and I know I didn't really expand upon much of that because that is the only somewhat downside, as towards the end of the game, it gets repetitious. It really does, and it's the same thing, and you're sort of dying all the time. Because there's some difficulty spikes that show up. Well, I'm not gonna say that it's constant, but there are times when you just can't get past an enemy, and then you'll just have some good luck. Like the gods were rolling in your favor or something. But that doesn't mean that the actual gameplay isn't fun. Like, I really did enjoy that turn-based combat. It was a much different experience than just your average turn-based game, because you do move your character around. You're sort of like through your attacks, you can move further to the left, further to the right, and on these bigger enemies, you're trying to kind of take down certain parts of them. That becomes a huge strategy. Or like when you fight a hydra, which is kind of a common enemy, you have to kill all three of them in their heads at once. And so this does lead to the combat actually being really fresh at the beginning. It's probably like nothing you've experienced before as far as turn-based. And while you are mastering that style of combat and definitely just enjoying this new style, it is incredibly fresh and fun. It's just the last, I would say, like I said, 20-30% of the game does start to get a little bit repetitious. That also, though, could be something on my part, because I didn't upgrade my character enough, and I did run into those difficulty spikes where I felt like I kept running into walls and having to go back and fight some of the same monsters. Now, the cool thing I will tell you is, so you have these like runs where you'll have like 5 to 6 interactions, and it could be, maybe 3 enemy fights, 3 things that you're discovering, and then a boss or a big important event that happens at the end. Now, if you get up into the last boss and you die at that last boss, then you'll just go back to the beginning, but you have already completed everything. So you can just go right back to the boss. You don't have to restart the whole thing again. So I did want to, emphasize that, because that's really important, especially if someone like me, who I would have gave up if you had to do that, honestly. But anyway, I think this is a must play for any fans of indie games, RPGs, the combination of anyone who's really into like story-driven games. And for all my collectors out there, this might be one you want to take note of, because I do see this one as being one that if you can get your hands on, it could be worth quite a bit in the future. You never know. It's always a gamble, but that's just my thoughts. If I was going to give this game a score, it would be a solid 9 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great price point of, I believe it was around 20 bucks. I know it was below 30, but anyway, I appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing. Let me know what your thoughts are on this game. Let me know if this is one that you're interested in checking out or if you've already played it. Let me know all your thoughts down below. They're much appreciated. I love every single one of you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.